solving quadratic equations by completing the square. Okay, here are your steps. To solve quadratic equations, that's, when you have exponent of 2, by completing the square, a constant c is added to ax squared plus bx so that ax squared plus bx plus c is a perfect square trinomial. Remember we used the shortcut to factor that? When you have your perfect square here, and then your b is 2 times a times c. You had your square root of a, x, either minus or plus, square root of c, and then that's squared. So just a reminder to one of those special ways of factoring. All right, so in order to create a perfect square trinomial, find half of your b. Whatever your b is, that's whatever is attached to your x, your coefficient of your x, divided by 2. Then square it, then add it to ax squared plus bx. After you do that, you factor it. If you need to solve, then you solve it after you factor it. All right, so complete the square, then factor. So step 1, well, of course, figure out what your b is. Step 1 is take half of b, which is 3. Then you square it, which is 9. Then you add it, x squared plus 6x plus 9. So now we factor it. We have a perfect square. We have a perfect square. These are both plus signs, so it's going to be x plus 3 squared. And then if you want to check it, x plus 3 times x plus 3, x squared plus 3x plus 3x plus 9, x squared plus 6, that was a plus sign, x plus 9, that is what we have here. Okay, you try and do this one and see if you get the right answer. Did you get x plus 7/2 x squared? If so, great. Move on to the next one. If not, let's figure out what went wrong. So this one is a little bit funky because 7's an odd number. So we still do the same steps. Half of 7. And I'm going to leave it like that. Square it. 49 over 4. Because then when I square root it, it's going to be 7 over 2. All right, so now I add it on here. And I know it's both plus signs, so this is going to be a plus. Square root of this is x. Square root of this means you take square root of each of those. 7/2, which is what you started with, squared. And you can leave it as an improper fraction because you are technically not done. You did not solve it. Okay, now solving, we know, means we have to set it equal to 0. So we have to do something a little bit funky here. Okay, it's telling me to solve by completing the square, so I know I need these two by themselves because that's how you do completing the square. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Now I have this by itself, so I'm going to complete the square. Half of 8 is 4. 4 squared is 16. So I'm going to add 16 to my left-hand side. However, as always, if you add something to one side, what you do to one side, you have to do the other. So I have to add 16 to both sides for this to work. I'm going to do 2 steps at the same time. I'm going to go ahead and factor this, x plus 4 squared, and then I'm going to simplify that as well. So now I'm going to solve. This whole thing is squared, and I want to get rid of that squared thing on the outside. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So I have x plus 4 is equal to positive 6, but a square root means I also have x plus 4 is equal to negative 6. So I'm going to have to solve each one of those. Subtract 4 from both sides on this equation, x equals 2. I'm going to subtract 4 on this equation, x equals -10. And then I can always check it. If x is 2, I have 2 squared plus 8 times 2 minus 3, and that should be equal to 17, is it? 2 squared is 4 plus 16 minus 3 equals 17. That's 20 minus 3 equals 17. You betcha. 17 equals 17. That checks, so I know that is correct. Or x is equal to -10. So -10 squared plus 8 times -10 minus 3 equals 17. 100 plus -80 minus 3 equals 17. That's 20 minus 3 equals 17. 17 equals 17. Checks. So I know that is the solution to this equation. Okay, you just hit pause and try to do this one by yourself. Hit pause. Okay, if you're listening to me, it's because you have an answer. Do you have x equals -6 or x equals 4? If you do, you can move on to the next slide. If you do not, let's see what's going on. Okay, so the first thing I did, I noticed all of these were even, so I divided everything by 2. I get x squared plus 2x plus 5 equals 29. And I want this by itself, so I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. X squared plus 2x equals 24. And now I'm going to go through my steps. Half of b, this is b, half of b is 1. 1 squared is 1. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. X squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 24 plus 1, because we always know what is on one side has to go on the other. X squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 25. Okay, I want this to be equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract 25 from both sides. X squared plus 2x minus 24 equals 0. Okay, I need two numbers who multiply together to be -24, who add together to be 2. And that's going to be 6 and 4. My 4 is going to be negative. Okay, those add together to be 2. Okay, because my a is 1, I can just do x plus 6, x minus 4, that's equal to 0. X plus 6 equals 0, x minus 4 equals 0, x equals -6, x equals +4. So that's how I got that answer. And then, of course, I check it to make sure I have the right answer. If x is -6, 2 times -6 squared plus 4 times -6 plus 10 equals 58. 2 times 36 plus -24 plus 10 equals 58. 72 plus -14 equals 58. I combine those two. 58 equals 58, so that checks. Now I'm going to do 4. 2 times 4 squared, 16, plus 4 times 4 is 16, plus 10 equals 58. 12. Yep, that checks too. So I just checked, and that's the right answer. Okay, why don't you see if you can do this on your own? Hit pause and do it. Hit play when you're done. Hit play because you did you get? It will take about 2.4 seconds for the phone to land on the water. If so, awesome. If not, let's see what's going on. Okay. So we know this is our equation, and we know h is going to be equal to 0. -16t squared plus 32t plus 16 equals 0. I'm going to divide everything by 16. Sorry, -16 t squared minus 2t minus 1 equals 0. And we're going to solve by completing the square. So we need this by itself. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. T squared minus 2t equals 1. Okay, so now I'm ready. Half of negative 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1, so I'm going to add 1 to both sides. T squared minus 2t plus 1 equals 1 plus 1. Simplify that, and I get t squared minus 2t plus 1 equals 2. Okay, now I have to set it equal to 0. I am not going to move the 2 over to the other side to factor it, because if I do that, I won't be able to factor it. But I can factor it like this, because this is a perfect square and this is a perfect square. So t minus 1 squared equals 2. Take the square root of both sides, and I have t minus 1 is equal to positive square root of 2, and t minus 1 equals negative square root 2. I'm going to leave it as square root for now, because I know that that's not a perfect square, and it is a irrational number, so I'm just going to leave it like that for a second. So plus 1, t equals 1 plus square root 2, t equals 1 minus square root 2. Now I'm going to use my calculator and figure out what square root of 2 is. Square root of 2 is 1 plus 1.4142, and then it keeps going forever and ever and ever. But I'm going to round to the nearest tenth. It doesn't tell me where to, so I'm just going to do it there. So 1 minus 1.4142. Okay, this one I know ends up as a negative, so I'm not even worrying about it because we can't have a negative number. Or that would be like when you first threw it, I guess. Well, that is for where you first threw it, but it's not 0 because you're at 30. Anyway, 1 plus 1.412 is 2.4142, goes on forever. I'm going to round to my nearest tenth, so 2.4 is approximately t. So now I'm going to write my sentence. I'm ready to write my sentence. The stone hits the water at about, because I rounded, 2.4 seconds. I had to look to see what my time was labeled as. About 2.4 seconds.